Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. This is the podcast slash YouTube channel where I, your host, Carolyn Hines, film critic and journalist, speak to film creators around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today is one of my interviews for the 2024 Fantasia International Film Festival, and I'm joined by director Kourtney Roy and actor Jason Deline to talk about their film Kryptic, which at first seems to just be um a horror film filled with body horror, which I is a challenge for me. Body horror is like hard. So
Oh yeah.
I think it ends up being a film about women's autonomy and like how women process sex and sexual advances from men and how that can be a difficult thing for some women with regards to like the main character is Bar Valentine, or is she? And so we'll get into that because I have questions about this film. But first of all, thank you so much, Kourtney and Jason, for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, Kourtney, I have to ask you how you found this project. Like, you're not the writer. The writer is. Let me put the credits.
Paul Bromley.
Oh my gosh, what is see what I mean about technology hating me? Now Zoom is sending me some kind of message. Um, so the writer is Paul Bromley. So talk to me about how you and Paul met up and how you became attached to the project, Kourtney.
Um, Paul and I have actually been friends for a long time, well, quite a few years now, over 10 years. And it was in 2019. We were hanging out one evening. I was in London in the UK. That's where he's based in the UK. And we were just drinking a bunch of wine, and we drunkenly decided, or he drunkenly proposed to me that he would write a script for me based on my my work, because I'm a photographer also. So I have kind of a big body of work as a photographer, and he wanted to write a script based on more like my visual world that I've created.
Mm.
And I kind of naively agreed. And so that was the sort of the launching pad for the creation of Kryptic. It was a very kind of um uh, I guess organic, or very it wasn't a painful creative process of trying to sort of bring to light this story. It was, we spent a lot of time just talking, chatting about what we wanted to see in films. Paul is quite sophisticated, so he would not ask for, but he would mention things like, he likes doppelgangers. He wanted a road movie, female driven lead. And I would say more basic things like I wanted monsters and mucus. So it was kind of really a marriage of all these different ideas that we both wanted to have seen a film. And then from there, he took basically these building blocks and started writing. And then he'd come back to me after he had a first draft of the first act, and we would go through it and we'd talk about it, and we'd make notes, and he'd take those notes and he'd make more changes. So it was like a really, really nice, fun, creative process. It was just really like the sky was the limit for us, basically.
Yeah, and so the film you mentioned the word mucus, and we'll get into that because we'll talk about that when it comes to talking about the technical aspects of the film. But the film hinges on the character of Kay Hall, played by Chloe Pierre, and she's going to this hike in British Columbia. Like one of the things the first thing she says is she's doing this to make friends. She's doing this because she needs to make friends and make connections with people. So you get the sense that she's a loner, and that she's not
Yep.
being around people. So so the hike begins, and then like the tour guide talks about this lady Barbara Valentine, who is a cryptozoologist that goes missing. And like 2 months later, just decides to walk away from the group. And she sees this thing. And I'll be honest, my first immediate response was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, why would you walk away from the group? But because she's a loner, it's almost like that's almost instinctual for her to find a way that she separates herself from any group that she's in. So talk to me about that, because like that doesn't happen like maybe like 15-20 minutes in the film. It happens like within the first 10
Yeah,
minutes.
we would dive in really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
we
gotta get in there because you immediately set it up that she's a loner, but then she sees this thing and it's just like she just takes off, and it's just like, why would you do this? And so talk to me. So talk to me about beginning the film that way. First of all, by her just saying, "I'm doing this to make friends."
I mean, yeah, that, she is a bit of a loner. She's a bit of a wallflower. She's awkward around people. She's never been Miss Popular. So something is always just sort of not sitting quite right with her. There's an awkwardness about her that's important. That she's doing this. She's going out to try to be a normal person. And when she goes, sort of, that's going to go to two things. So that she goes off into the woods. You go, why would she do that? But like, is there a possibility that maybe she felt some sort of pull of something, was something kind of calling her to go, right?
Hmm.
So that would be my take on it personally. Of course, it's quite open to interpretation, and I'm happy with other people's interpretation. But for me, it was perhaps that something was sort of pulling her and calling her. It was kind of bit not it's beyond her control, but she responded to whatever was sort of reaching out and kind of hooking into her. And people who have perhaps who have had encounters in their lifetime, whether as adults or children, they tend to be kind of awkward, strange people. People who say they have encounters as an adult often have had also strange experiences as children. There's people who are throughout their life have to deal with these, I don't know, these sort of encounters, let's say, or these for lack of a better word, the people who claim to have been kidnapped by aliens. It's never just once. It's been something that's kind of been going on their whole life. That when whatever it is in the universe puts their eye on you, it's forever, and it fucks you up forever. So people who have these things, whether it's real or not, or whether you believe that people have encounters with cryptids or aliens or ghosts. When these things happen, these people usually there's a downward spiral after this, and maybe it's even mental. It could be, is it mental illness? Is it psychological? But whatever it is, puts in motion a process that usually a lot of times people their marriages dissolve, they lose their jobs. So there's a whole domino effect that happens when something like this happens. So this is kind of based on, let's say, folklore about paranormal activity and about people who have had contact with these sort of interdimensional beings, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
so it's part of the lore, the mythology of this already. So I didn't kind of make this up out of nowhere. It's kind of based on ideas that are kind of floating around. Obviously, I just kind of use them for my own way in the film. I'm not actually trying to adhere to any specific sort of paranormal, supernatural rule book in any way.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense because like I'm a fan of sci-fi. I grew up watching X-Files and like shows like Nostradamus, which is an old like Canadian show that I don't even think anyone even knows, but it's it is about there's things in this world that we can't explain, like there's things that do draw us, and like, I've had my own experiences, whether they be supernatural or just like extremely creepy. But it's just like when I saw her doing that, it was just like, why? It's gonna be every watch a horror film. That people say don't separate.
Like, why are you doing that?
Say,
but I mean, nothing. It's not like she walked off in the forest and she met the axe murderer. Like she has an experience, but it's not necessarily negative. I mean, it's disturbing and unsettling. But she hasn't been hunted. It didn't try to attack her. That, as far as we know, something's like so. Am I giving away too much? You might have to edit that out.
No, you're not.
I was talking every interview that I'm like, oh wait, hey, can you edit that out?
No, I don't think there's any way to spoil this film, honestly, because like nothing that I think we could say could really adequately describe what happens in this film. Like simply talk about mucus, no one could have any idea what context that that takes in, right? And even in talking about her having this experience right at the beginning of the hike where she just walks off, and like it's hard, you can't spoil it for anyone because even when you're watching it, it's hard to describe what is actually happening on screen, right? Because like we don't get a full complete look at this creature, at this cryptid. We can't even describe it to anyone because we, the audience, don't even know what we're necessarily looking at, which I thought
you have no idea what's happening at any given moment.
So like it's almost impossible to spoil a film like this. And for you, Jason, talk to me about how you became involved with the project. What was it that made you want to get involved with it?
I saw some sides, like short pieces of script for the audition. And I originally read for the role of Morgan that Jeff Gladstone portrayed. And I liked that character, but I didn't quite connect to it as much as Jeff did. Jeff was incredible. He was perfect in it. But Kourtney sort of said, I sort of maybe see another character in you that we haven't cast yet. And would you read for this character of Caleb? But warning, there's nudity in the script, but we can talk about whether that's necessary or not. And then when I started reading his character, I was just really intrigued by him and really wanted to play him. So I put myself on tape for that, and that just seemed like a much better fit. And I think the film is aside from me, everyone is so well cast. Everyone is so great in their little niche performance. There are a lot of wacky characters in this movie, but with that large a cast, you run the danger of like someone not fitting and the tone being off. But everyone just killed it. It's so fun to watch. All these different unique people pop up. They don't steal focus for very long. They get what they're a part of, and it just becomes a cohesive whole. Like everyone's completely different, but all seem to be part of the same universe, if that makes sense. And that was very intriguing. It was very fun to play in that sandbox.
Yeah, the film gives me a feeling almost like it's a mashup of X-Files, but then also there was this show like back in the 90s called why am I drawing a blank on it?
Twin Peaks?
Northern Ex not no not Twin
Northern
Northern
Explosion.
Exposure.
Mm,
Northern Exposure. Wow.
It's
Okay.
giving me because it's like you have these
good
characters,
one.
these oddball characters who come in and out of the story. And like Northern Exposure, I've never seen another show like that where like you have all of these extremely unique characters and they have this and they all see the world very differently and very uniquely, but they still manage to form a community together, whether they like each other or not, they still hang around each other. So I know it sounds weird, but like the film kind of makes me think of like if X-Files took place in the top of where Northern Exposure was out. And instead of the random moose walking through, we have this cryptid just popping in and out. Like I
Yeah.
love that show.
It was a great show for sure. It's definitely formative part of my formative years of being a teenager. Yeah. Watching
Yeah,
it. I think it was every Thursday night. Can't remember, but yeah.
was it
Nice.
Thursday nights? Yeah. So
I can't remember, but it was one night a week, and I didn't have cable, so I'd go to my friend's house. So we had no cable or no channels. We had like three channels. So yeah.
yeah, no, I understand because growing up in the Caribbean, when I was younger, we had what was called STV, which is what would be considered cable, and we didn't have it. So like when we got those kind of shows late, so like they show on our national channel, I think it was pirated, but we so we'd only get to watch them like if someone was able to like get it, it's what had a satellite dish and you would actually connect your cable to the satellite dish and you feed the channels to each other. So that's how we was able to watch a lot of those shows. But
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah, it was like we like when there's a way, there's a will, kind of.
When there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Wait, I said
Yeah.
it backwards, right? When there's a will, there's a way. Like
But
that.
but I understood perfectly. Also, when there's a way, there's a will as well. You're right.
Yes, it works both ways sometimes.
Yeah, so talk to me about that aspect of the film where you have all of these oddball characters who come into Kay's life, and then eventually Barb, because I don't even know how to explain it to say that she becomes Barb because that doesn't even explain what happens. But talk to me about these different characters in the story because each of them has their own. I don't even think motivations, but each of them like does something to her personally, where she takes something from them individually, and each interaction changes her. And I noticed that like every time she has a specific interaction with specific characters, she changes fundamentally. She's not the same person she was before.
Interesting. Um. Oh, these kids. I mean, I think you kind of what you just said is sort of yeah. They're there to kind of signpost the way forward for her. They're kind of like clues, for lack of a better word, or kind of just they nudge her in different directions. Even like this, the smallest kind of character role. The food truck guy, he pushes her as well. He goes to the Bears Den, these, all this stuff like this. So each character is, and they're kind of in their own, each one is sort of encapsulates their own little world. It's almost like she's moving from a bubble dream. Like for me, it's like a dream world to a dream world. This road trip, the car just brings you through, for me, for different realms, almost like she's moving through different dreamlike worlds and getting in. Also, she's in Sally's world, and it's colorful, it's full of this and this, and then she moves into the realm of the forest with Starla, and this happens, and so all these things are helping propel her forward. And at the same time, we get to kind of experience each character's world in its own, and I feel like they're almost kind of complete, like little snow globes, that you can shake, like they're hermetic, in a way, and somehow she manages through her experience to be able to traverse them all and to move them all one after the other, which maybe if she hadn't had this experience, maybe she would never have been able to do that.
Yeah, it's like they kind of help her to come out of her bubble and her shell bit by bit. Right?
Yeah,
Can I
they
ask you a
encourage
question
her.
about?
They're what's
I
that?
have a question about that, Kourtney, and without spoiling too much, I wonder if you can answer this. Is it possible that Barb left breadcrumbs along the way for Kay to follow?
Well, that's interesting. You know what, Jason? That is a very interesting observation, and I think it's valid. I had not thought of that, actually.
Hmm.
But I think I really actually like hearing other people's theories. So that's a kind
Yeah,
of a cool
I'm
theory.
still trying to
I'm
piece
gonna keep that,
together this
Jason.
movie. I've
Yeah,
got my own theories, but yeah, it's fun. It's
that is
fun to
interesting.
puzzle
Yeah.
out.
It makes sense, and it kind of ties into what I was gonna ask because it's a note that I made where because she is their doppelgangers, but I got the sense that Barb was aware of Kay's existence,
Yeah, but
and
we can't go there though. We can't talk about that.
but that's just my interpretation. I was like,
This is DVD commentary stuff.
Carolyn, you're dangerous. You're just bringing me down like dangerous
I
waters here. Like territory I'm not allowed to go in.
really kind of makes me think, maybe I was right. Because the thing is like, and it doesn't only necessarily have to do with just with the film, just like in real life, like there's people that we meet, and like you may meet them for a very brief time, but that interaction stays with you, and that interaction, like you may not even think about it for years, but something would happen and it brings back that interaction. You're just like, wait, there are decisions that I made after that interaction that actually came from that, where if you hadn't had that interaction with a specific person, the decisions that you made wouldn't have happened, right? Kind of like a butterfly effect. So the film,
Yes.
Yeah.
whereas like each interaction is like this expansive ripple in Kay's life, and I saw more about her is like like a metamorphosis, where she's like gradually becoming stronger and stronger to do what she needs to do at the end. Not gonna spoil it, but each interaction made her stronger to do what she needed to do at the end. So like, and I think like going with what Jason said, like part of that has to do with Barb, where Barb is like the catalyst for all of that,
Mm,
because even
I
like
agree.
thinking about her name, it was just like Barb Valentine. Because I'm a person that when I watch films and stuff, I'm always very curious about the details, like even the naming of characters. And like I thought Barb Valentine was an interesting name because like when people think of Valentine, they always associate it with love and romance and Valentine's Day. But the
Or
origin
the heart, the
or the
most
right and
puncturable but powerful part of the body, can kill you and brings you life.
love is both healing and damaging. Love can go from being romantic to obsessive, which is kind of what happens in the film. Like it starts out one way, and if you don't manage it and keep it as a
Mhm.
principle and you let it mutate and grow, it can become something very dangerous. So, and like even if you look at the origin of actual Valentine's Day, it came out of violence. Like their first official
Yeah.
Valentine's was a massacre. So I was wondering about. I had to ask him like, tell me about the name of Barb Valentine because I just thought I was just like it just made me think of violence in the context of the film, and it didn't make me think about romance at all.
No, I mean, no, you are definitely thinking about this much more than me because I think Paul and I just thought it sounded really cool ass. So we just thought that's a really awesome name, Barb Valentine. We just thought can't get a better name than that. It was actually K Hall. There's maybe a bit more reference there. K Hall. K Hall.
Oh wait. Oh.
Oh.
Like a weapon associated with it. Because like there's U-Haul, but K-Haul, what does that make me think
No,
of?
K hole, like a ketamine hole, going down like a rabbit hole, like a bad
Ah,
like drug trip.
like
Ah.
Alice in Wonderland. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a K so see
Yeah.
like when you like I think when apparently like if you take too much ketamine you go down it's called a K hole. This is what I've heard. So and Paul was just kind of a wink because he thought it was quite funny. So K hall. But,
Okay.
yeah.
And for
I
you,
didn't know that.
talk to me about Caleb's interactions with Kay slash Barb about like what like Because as I said, like each person she meets and each interaction she meets changes her fundamentally. How did you read Caleb's interactions with her?
Oh, that's a good question. The way I felt about it, I mean, I can't speak for Chloe, but the way I felt our relationship was in the movie between Caleb and Kay was sort of one of confusion on her part, and that she felt this person who was unashamed sexually, and that seemed to feel new for her, especially once we see where what her background is, what her typical romantic life is like. So I think she's both repulsed and sort of in awe of Caleb and how he just moves through the world in sort of an impossible way. And I think Caleb thinks this is a new person he can take advantage of, who he sees is on a different plane from the people in his usual circle. And I think what finally happens between them is he awakens a bit more of that monster in her, and she, I don't know how much I should say, I guess.
Be
um,
careful.
but I feel like her meeting Caleb started in confusion, maybe mixed with rage and lust and power. And then, like you said, I think she transforms into the next level. She becomes more powerful and serene after that, I think, and maybe has a clearer vision. I think there's some panic in there too, but yeah, everything is driving her onwards to where she needs to be, maybe. Or yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that entire sequence, that interaction with them is like she at the beginning, the first way she sees him is that he's naked, so she sees him
Mm-hmm.
without any artifice, without any covering, and so she sees him as him, and that immediately sets up give a perception of him in her mind. But then she starts
Yeah.
his interaction with Sasha and Sasha's mother and for Kay, that tells her like what I thought about you is correct, because that those interactions are where Caleb he seems nice in a sense, but then it's just like little things that he says and does that really kind of undermines that, where
Yeah.
it's
And I really like the idea of portraying that because I feel like often in films, the bad guy is shown to be such a bad guy, a man who takes advantage of women. They dial that up to 10. But I kind of like the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of idea that is prevalent everywhere. And then it's interesting to me that the tables were turned and she becomes sort of the uh, wolf in sheep's clothing that he didn't see coming. So I think there's a really nice little chess game there.
yeah, because he underestimates her. He underestimates all the women around,
Mm-hmm.
right? He thinks that because he's a man and that he is the catch of the town or of their little community, that he can basically sexually dominate all of them, and
Exactly.
and
Yep.
that's what he tries to do with her. And then she in turn flips the script literally and she's like, But the thing is that she doesn't do it consciously, which I thought was interesting. It's almost like this subconscious thing with her. And then everything that happens after that, it's like she becomes more conscious of her strength, you know
Yes, there's a huge growth for Kay throughout these experiences, I think. Yeah.
yeah, it's like everything that she does before that is subconsciously. But then once that interaction with the two of you happens, she's like, wait, I do have the capability to step up. I do have the capability to dominate. I do have the capability to protect myself, and it's like she uses every interaction to really come to really she wanted to make a decision before, but she didn't know how to do it. So each interaction solidified in her mind, like what I want to do is actually the right thing that I need to do. So I thought it was interesting. So for Kourtney, talk to me about these interactions with Kate. Like we've talked about the supernatural element of like the cryptid, which is the suka or the sukama, and like the film starts up being about the cryptid, this thing in the forest, but I think she's actually the cryptid, she's the undefined thing. She's the thing that can't be described, she's the thing, this mysterious thing. And because of this mystery, we find the clues going on, but we get them through these interactions. So talk to me about structuring the interactions that she has with all of these different characters and how they basically solidify this decision that she needs to make.
Oh, wow, that's a big talk about these interactions, decisions. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that, Carolyn. Like, you have to structure your question a bit differently, maybe. We're
Okay,
talking a lot about a lot of big things, a lot of information going on. So, I mean, because obviously, like I did talk about earlier about how, like, these characters are sort of signposts in a way to propel her forward and stuff, to move her to sort of the ultimate kind of finale of the film.
no,
Um,
okay, so because like, as we've been discussing, like each interaction that she has with each person is like allows Kay to uncover a part of herself that she didn't know, like the strength, the sexuality, the confidence, and all of these things, all these interactions bring out these specific things, like for instance, there's the lady in the chair who solidifies in Kay's mind, I'm not the only person experiencing this. Someone else has had this experience as well.
mm,
The interaction with Caleb was about sexual dominance, where she was able to sexually dominate him and control the situation. So talk to me about how each of these sequences play out in a very specific way, like I think what happens at the end wouldn't work if the sequences were in a different order. That's what I mean. So can you talk a bit about structuring these specific sequences in this way?
you are reading. You have a much bigger imagination and reading, which is amazing. But I actually don't have anything to say really about that. Like, this is more something that I think just to be experienced, and I guess I don't really want to go too much academically into it because I actually haven't thought about it like that.
How have you thought about it?
Paul and I, when we were working on the story and stuff, it was quite instinctual in a way. We're not structuring like this needs to happen here and here. We're following something that kind of comes from inside of us that we're sort of propelled to do it. Probably, like a lot of people when being creative. So um I think what you're saying is actually very, very interesting, but I don't necessarily have that point of view actually on it because I don't analyze my work like that at all.
Oh,
At
okay.
all. Yeah, yeah. I've almost kind of preferred to not do that. It's not necessarily because it's a negative thing what you're doing. It's just that this is how I approach my work and photographically and film wise that I kind of avoid actually kind of taking approaches that would theorize it or overanalyze it because I feel like kind of kills it for me a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not that for me, not that it's that you analyzing it. If I read about what you said, would not kill it for me. I would find that fascinating.
No, I completely because everyone reads into films differently, which is why I
Yeah,
love
I love it. That's the beauty of it, of course. That's what's
and
amazing.
that's the beauty. Like I can read into it one way, and my twin sister would watch it next to me, she'd read into it a completely different way. So like having your perspective on that as the filmmaker is important for me, and I understand what you mean about visually because each of those. Okay, so let me bring it the change it up a bit. Talk to me how about the visual effects of those sequences because each sequence is also very different visually. The lighting is different, the cinematography is different, the editing is the pacing is different for each of them. So because of your photography background, how did that inspire the way that these sequences were shot? Because each one is very distinct in and of itself, almost like if you were to like take a film reel and like you could see each of them as a particular shot within a film reel.
I think that would actually probably then refer back to what I was talking about earlier, was that each world is its own sort of complete hermetic kind of environment. So it kind of comes with its own aesthetic, its own lighting. So that when you get to the trailer park and you're inside the trailer, has these warm sort of glows coming in. When you're in Sally, you have these wonderful sort of rich reds. And sort of more Christmas lights and things like this. You have the bar. I mean, all these colors, especially a lot of them are at nighttime. When they're nighttime, I really wanted, I guess I call it like almost a surreal sort of lighting, very kind of punchy, very saturated, to contrast quite strongly with. There's a lot of daylight actually too. Like a lot of stuff happens in daylight, stuff that's kind of maybe weird or disturbing. And that's done on purpose because it's almost this contrast. The stereotypical approach would be that bad things happen at night or strange things and unsettling things, but actually unsettling, strange things happen in broad daylight. And I really like using that approach, that contrast, to kind of shake up what we would normally expect.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I think some of the most heinous acts are committed in the broad light of day, and also like more stuff is revealed, I think, at night than in the day. Because in the day, no one is really looking to see what is wrong. Whereas in day, people are always suspicious of like the sound. If like you hear that suspicious sound, you're like, "Ooh, what's going on?" But if you hear it in the day, you might not be as like cautious or more as suspicious. So I totally get what you're
True.
saying.
Yeah.
And now I want to talk now about the technical aspects. I mentioned the mucus. As I said, I don't me and body horror, like it's a challenge. It's about the sounds and the textures. It just like that's what really grosses me out. So first of all, props to your prop masters, everyone that works in the
Yeah, they
props,
did a great job, no?
the sound designers, like props to them because just the sound of everything creeped me out and let's like ew. So talk to me about the whole sequences with the mucus, and it's not the actual something's just the actual mucus, but like these vignettes that we get of Kay that looks like she's being consumed, and then it turns out I don't think she's being consumed. She's like in a metamorphosis, like almost like a a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, like that's her in a chrysalis, in a kind of thing. It's a monstrous chrysalis, but it's still a transformation that she needs to experience. So talk to me about the technical aspects of the film and those sequences, because
Yeah, these sequences, right? We kind of loosely called them dream sequences. Obviously, they're not dreams, but in their surreal sort of aspect of them and their untangibility. For me, they were this kind of a visual sort of representation of a sort of inner state of being, a psychological state of being, or metamorphosis. What's going on inside Kay? So this sort of psychological landscape that I wanted to give form to, that would show the effects that this creature, this being is having on her. And so that's basically, that's why we did it. We had this giant, which Jason can attest to, like how weird it was. This giant cavity, which I called the giant vagina, it was this giant box, like filled with like weird flesh parts that they had created. The actors could kind of crawl in through a hole like in the floor, just like so Freudian, and then they would be covered in goo, and then we would just they would interact with it. We'd have kind of body parts moving around because you could push in the sides of the box and move stuff around, so that had a very organic feel. And we just had tons and buckets of mucus. Emerson Ziffler, our special effects guy, the head special effects guy, he designed the monster, and he also, him and his team brought in the cavity, like all that stuff. They did doing all that on a very low budget, and it was amazing. But like I don't know, like 10 different types of mucus, from very thick, like, and then really runny, really stringy, very clear, very white. It was actually really fun, and it was a really creative, fun aspect of the filmmaking for sure.
And for you,
There's
Jake,
hardly any blood in the movie. It's mostly mucus.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, blood is sort of almost like, yeah, everybody does blood. Like we got,
Yeah,
I want a
yeah.
mucus. I like it.
mucus is just gross. As for you, Jason, like how tell me about going through this thing, like just the thought of it would be like the worst amusement park event ever. Like just thinking of it has me just like all squeaked out. Like seriously. But for you, what was it like? Because like I'm sure it helped with like the sequence that happens after for Caleb.
Well, we don't always shoot these things in order. I think the cavity was actually the last thing that I did. But
Yeah.
it's very helpful when, as an actor, you're trying to portray something that is supposed to be a somewhat of a different level of consciousness or a dream state or something, to have physical stimuli that feels like it's from another world or another plane. It was very easy to feel I'm in a dream, I'm in another plane, and it helped me serve the story. It took me to a place that was uncomfortable for me, that was in a different universe for me. So these practical things, really more than just being able to be proud that someone made something physically or that you can tell it's really there, it's a tactile experience for the actor that you don't get from just a green screen or something. You have it there to use as a tool and to interact with, and it looks so terrifyingly real, but it's also kind of this meditative dreamscape too. It's a really interesting blend of things happening. And yeah, for me, I'm clearly not just Caleb, the guy standing at the bar now. I'm the Caleb who's going through some kind of metamorphosis with Kay, or going on this ride through a dimension or a body or something. And it's both mental and physical. And so I thought it was strange for sure, but I loved having it. It really helped take me to where I needed to be.
Would you ever do it again?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Yeah, no, I would do it again. Kryptic 2, you know who?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
return.
Yeah, the return of Caleb. Um,
Would
yeah,
Caleb have
yeah.
changed? Would Caleb be better or would he be worse? You know, kind of like, okay, the whole
Well,
situation.
I guess it depends where you're coming from. Caleb would probably believe he was better, but everyone else would probably think he was worse.
Probably, probably. I think we have a few more minutes now with the time allotted. So, one of my last questions I want to ask you is like, what are your own perceptions about this film? Because this film is very much about, like as I had said at the beginning, like you can't. It's hard to describe, which I think is actually a good thing, and it's like hard to spoil. But there's so many different ways that we can read into this film and to like what the ultimate resolution is for Kay and like what the message is. Like for me, I read it as being more about her sexual liberation, but also her autonomy and advocacy for herself. Because I got the sense that Kay wasn't enamored with sex, that she doesn't enjoy sex. I was wondering if she even if she's asexual, you know, but she's in this relationship, she's in a marriage because she thinks that's what society wants her to do, so that's what she becomes, you know. And then at the end she's able to control it and do, in a way, perform it on her own terms, you know, and she's able to say, this is not what I want and this is not who I want to do it with, whatever state that is. So that's kind of how I read the film. But for you, Jason and Kourtney, like, how do you read this film and what is your own perception about what the film is about?
That's another question that what I think doesn't matter.
Yeah, you
I think your Carolyn, that your analysis is pretty apt, pretty succinct. So I think you definitely have some super interesting things that you're saying there that you're catching on that that are definitely in there. Afterwards, what I have to say is kind of not really important, but I'd be curious to say what Jason has to say about it.
Oh Lord. I mean, this movie exists in a couple of different ways to me. Like, you could ask someone what War and Peace is about, what the meaning is behind it, and you can ask them what the Toxic Avenger is about and what the meaning is behind it. And with War and Peace, they might go on and on and on about all these themes and how war repeats itself, etc. And they might say the Toxic Avenger is about nothing. It's about some mutant who has mucus coming out of him and he runs around. I think Kourtney and Paul are a blend of these sensibilities. And I think there's a lot of beauty and art in what Kourtney does. And she finds a beautiful way to tell stories without, as she said, over analyzing them. And I think Paul has structured the screenplay in a way that there are arcs and there are beats of a character building, but it's not done in a traditional way. And so it's part monster movie, but part growth for a woman who's been abused by men. They're both there. They both exist for people who want that or look for that. I think it works on different levels. If you want the depth, it's in there and you can pull it out. I have theories that I can't even commit to. I wouldn't say to someone, this is about this, because I don't want to color what their experience is. But also, I could be wrong. And also, I think saying almost anything about it spoils it. So I understand that this is frustrating maybe for you, Carolyn, but like I don't think this is a
But
film
Carolyn
that
is so articulate. She's
it's
so articulate,
regular.
actually. She's
Yes,
talking.
yes. I
I'm
think
like, oh,
there's a
she
lot
got it.
of
She got
stuff there
it.
that you're talking about, but I also think it really is a unique film that is not built in a traditional way and will touch different people in different ways. And I can't wait to see more about what people write about it and the things I'll agree with and disagree, and then go, oh, wow, that was not the intention. But of course, it's there subliminally. I think we all did a lot of things without knowing we were doing them. And it's a weird thing to say, but it is a very dreamy movie. And
No,
I don't have anything more specific I can say, I don't think.
it's open to interpretation, and it suits the title of the film is like perfect for it. It's like cryptic, because the definition of cryptic is, like undefined, like you say something,
Absolutely.
are you keeping a secret kind of thing. So it makes sense, and I do understand that. And fun fact, I have a copy of War and Peace, and I have yet to finish reading it. I have this thing for like 25 years, and I'm just like, I stopped halfway because I couldn't keep track with all the characters because everyone is Prince that, Prince that, and I'm like, you know what, forget it. I'm like Tolstoy. other.
Not everything is for everybody.
I could not. I'm just like Tolstoy. These are too many words. Too many words. Um, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me and for talking with me about this film. And I like that you don't have like definite answers, because it's like leaving people to interpret it for however they want to interpret it. But thank you so much
Yeah,
for your
it's important. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Speak to you soon.
Bye,
Thank you.
Kourtney.
Ciao. See you later. Bye.